10 most plausible pyramid construction theories. One of the most baffling mysteries in human history has been trying to explain the incredible feat of engineering that resulted in the Great Pyramids of Egypt. For thousands of years, historians, architects, and scientists have tried to come up with their best explanations for these massive constructions. 10. Ancient machines, cranes. Naturally, the first thought that pops into our minds when we think of constructing a building is the use of cranes to lift and carry heavy pieces of metal or stone. The first pyramids were step pyramids with large flat surfaces on which heavy cranes could stand and operate. Certainly, ancient cultures were aware of levers and pulley systems, and they likely used something like this to construct the first pyramids. However, cranes have almost no plausibility when it comes to explaining the Great Pyramids of Egypt given such small surfaces on which to stand. 9. The pyramids were originally hills. An interesting yet bizarre explanation behind the pyramids is that they began originally as natural mountainous formations, and then the rocks were laid over these hills top down rather than bottom up. This idea was first proposed in an 1884 article in the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette by a conference of scientists. Perhaps this is what Herodotus meant when he said the pyramids were built top down. Hey, at least it's an imaginative proposal despite being ridiculous and implausible. 8. Smoothing, flattening by hand. One of the most challenging feats involved in building the pyramids seems to be the way in which the Egyptians were able to cut the rocks with such extreme precision so as to stack them with almost no space at all in between. Not even a piece of paper can fit where two stones touch. How did the Egyptians achieve such tightness and perfection? We can't even recreate this today with our most powerful diamond-tipped blades. Well, it may surprise you to know that they may have been able to achieve this with basic hand tools and some ingenuity. It's not that they had better tools than we do now. They were just much better at using what they had. 3. They achieved this smoothness to the rocks by using two poles of equal height connected with tight rope, under which the rocks were placed. This allowed them to see whether the rocks could just barely slide in and out from under these ropes. 7. Limestone concrete. Perhaps an even better and more plausible way to achieve the perfectly smooth surfaces of the rocks was that the stones were made by pouring liquid limestone concrete, which was then encased to easily form a perfect geometric shape. There seems to be some evidence to support this theory. Under a microscope, Egyptologist Jean-Philippe Lauer detected what appears to be air bubbles on the surface of the stones, signifying that air may have become trapped under liquid concrete. According to the Journal of the American Ceramic Society, it also appears that the elements inside the stones were formed in a process that happened very quickly, which suggests that this is evidence of cement. 6. Zigzagging ramp. Here is the first of the various ramp theories that made the list. The flat ramp theory is not here because such a ramp would have had to be bigger than the pyramid itself. A flat ramp would have to extend outward 1.6 kilometers, 1 mile, from the pyramid, given an estimated 7-degree slope. Quickly realizing this problem, researchers devised other types of ramp theories. In order for a ramp to make sense, it would have needed to be constructed throughout the process of building the pyramid. Through a zigzagging ramp would require less material than a straight ramp. It is nearly as implausible because it would have required constant adjustment as the pyramid structure was built higher and higher. 5. Wetting sand. Today, some advocates still believe that the pyramid stones were moved over piles of sand that were made wet so as to much more easily drag the stones without causing friction. This theory would explain the transportation of the stones from quarries hundreds of miles away from the building site as well as how the workers moved the stones upward using some type of ramp. 6. But would a wet ramp provide enough stability for stones to be elevated upward when some of the stones weighed up to 20 tons each? And what about the men who would pull these stones up a wet ramp? Wouldn't they have a hard time grounding their feet on this type of surface? At best, this theory can only explain the transportation of the rocks. As a method of lifting the rocks, it fails. 4. The spiral ramp theory. Here's the first theory on this list that starts to make a bit of sense. When trying to devise a plausible ramp theory, people eventually began to realize that a spiral ramp could be constructed simultaneously with the pyramid. It would run along the outside of the pyramid and would continually rise upward as the pyramid was built. Proponents of this outer spiral ramp theory include Mark Lenner, an archaeologist with a Yale doctorate. 3. Water shaft theory. What about constructing a long water causeway underground from a local water source within a reasonable distance from the quarry and then using water shafts to float the stones upward? This theory suggests that a water causeway was used to transport the stones and that the stones were cut and shaped in the water. After a stone was cut to precision, light pieces of flotation material were attached to the stone. That way, it would float upward and its surface would be protected from bumping against other stones. There is some evidence to suggest that these types of water shafts were used to aid in constructions from other parts of the world. For example, it is believed that canals were used to build Angkor Wat in Cambodia. 2. Extraterrestrial Intervention. The more time spent trying to figure out how the pyramids were built by man, the more it seems as though the answer points elsewhere. Although extraterrestrial intervention is generally rejected by mainstream scholars, a healthy number of Egyptologists and historians believe that the pyramids were built by aliens. Upon hearing this theory, many will immediately scoff at it. However, extraterrestrial intervention is a completely natural theory. Given everything we know about the pyramids, it may be rational to conclude that ancient cultures could not have built these incredible structures on their own. Even with all our advanced technology today, we are wholly incapable of constructing pyramids like the ones in Egypt. Therefore, it seems unfathomable that an ancient primitive civilization possessed both the technology and the ingenuity to construct the pyramids with such extreme precision. 1. Pierre Howden's internal ramp theory. In recent times, one man stands apart from all others who have attempted to solve the mystery of how the pyramids were built. He is a French architect named Jean-Pierre Howden. Since the 1990s, he has devoted all his time to studying the Great Pyramid and has been able to design the most brilliant pyramid construction theory ever conceived. According to Howden, the Great Pyramid was constructed with the use of two separate spiral ramps. The first one was an outer spiral ramp ascending about 30% of the way up, and the second was an internal spiral ramp through which the heavy stones have dragged the rest of the way to the top. Howden calculated that this internal ramp had a slope of 7 degrees. This spiral ramp also included open sections on the corners for the workers to turn the blocks. This is where it is thought that cranes were used,